Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Ray Flowers breaks it all down for you from a fantasy sports perspective. Hey there, everyone. Ray Flowers, FantasyGuru.com. How you doing today, folks? You have a good time yesterday? Did you celebrate? Did you get a lot of presents? Better yet, did you give a lot of good presents yesterday? Did you give love? Did you give attention? Hopefully all those things did occur yesterday, and we're back at it here in Week 17, Championship Week in fantasy football in 2024. I'm Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. You can find me here on the show Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Justin Fensterman hosts on Wednesdays. Getting back into the swing of things, we had a couple of games we'll review here in a couple of minutes. In fact, I'll share everything here in a couple of minutes about what the show plan is going to be today. It's kind of, same old, but hey, that's how we do it here on the show. Want to remind everybody that you can still get things at fantasyguru.com for a discount. Yeah, that's right. Sign up right now at fantasyguru.com. Click that subscribe tab in the top right corner of the page. Have at it. And you can get the football product, get it all in one. DFS, seasonal, and wagering, all is one package. You can get that. Subscribe tab, top right corner at fantasyguru.com. You can get the gift cards. That's fantasyguru.com/gift. Excuse me. fantasyguru.com/product/gift-card. fantasyguru.com/product/gift-card. If you get a $25 gift card, we give you $35 to spend. If you give a $50 gift card, we give you $65 to spend. If you get a $100 gift card, we give you $125 to spend. And if you get a $200 gift card, we'll give you $53. We'll give you $250. So remember, fantasyguru.com/product/gift-card. Before we get into the analysis here, I just wanted to say I had a pretty good holiday. I think some of you probably saw. I posted it on my Twitter. I think on both my Instagram and my Twitter X feed. You can find me there at the Ray Flowers and other places as well. Here is one of the highlights of my holiday season. I got a pretty cool little gift here. That is a Mike Tyson's Punch-Out autographed picture. As you can see there, for those of you that can't see it, you can always watch the show live at youtube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork. You can watch it on facebook.com/FantasyGuruHQ. You can watch it live in those two spots, as well as leaving comments, questions, that kind of a thing. So you can get involved with us directly during the show. You can also watch us live on Twitter X at Fantasy Guru site. I'm showing a picture of this. I don't know. What is it? I want to say it's 11 by 14, something like that is the actual picture. The frame is a 16 by 20, I believe. That might even be bigger. I think it's 16 by 20. But it's Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. It's got a picture of him playing the Punch-Out video game, flexing his muscle after he TKO'd Kid Joe. And it's signed by Mike Tyson. It's a really cool piece. I still have my original Nintendo in the closet. I was able to verify I still got my original Mike Tyson's Punch-Out game in the closet. My partner, Jessie, she was really surprised when I said, I got the video game still. And she's like, you still have the video game? I said, yeah, I still have the video game. So there it is for those of you watching on the screen there. And also, here it is hanging up in my room. My office is kind of two rooms. It's a really large office here. And as you can tell, it's hanging up there on the wall next to my RBI baseball arcade game. The arcade game that was my favorite growing up was RBI Baseball. Played it forever on Nintendo, speaking of Nintendo. But I actually have the full, 6-foot-tall arcade game in the office. There it is. And I thought it'd be really apropos to have my RBI arcade game right next to my Mike Tyson Punch-Out autographed picture. So anyway, that's one of the highlights of mine. Hopefully, again, you had a great holiday season as well. But I just thought I'd share that because, hey, it's kind of cool. It's sports related. People really seem to enjoy it, seeing it on social media and everything like that. So there it is. Ray Flowers, one of his highlights of the holiday season. All right, what are we talking about today? We're talking about some Wednesday football, some Christmas Day football. And we said this. I've said this. You've said this. I think hopefully everyone said this. Terrible. Maybe some of you used it because you don't like your friends and family and you're stuck spending time with them. Maybe some of you just spent the day by yourself. And hopefully those of you that did that enjoyed watching the football games. But to me, football, stay away from football on Christmas, certainly on Wednesdays. Anyway, we'll talk about the Chiefs and the Steelers game. Then we'll talk about the Ravens and Texans game. One of those two games slightly better than the other, though neither was very good. We'll talk a little bit of some NFL news, lots of player news to discuss here as well. Guys dealing with some health injuries and that kind of thing. We'll go through that. As I realized I lost my sheet here. I had to reboot my whole computer. There were problems and everything. we'll make it. Don't worry, we'll make it through. We'll get that there. And then in about 25 or so minutes, it's a Thursday. And though the schedule is really wonky this week because of what the NFL chose to do with the schedule, play Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We're going to get back on track here on the show. Tyler Beaker will join us in about 25 minutes. We'll preview Thursday night football. We've obviously got a game there between Seattle and Chicago. So we'll talk to Tyler about that as well. Just an update to my Coffin Corner piece will be out normally tomorrow. My weekly matchup piece that I was able to get up Tuesday so that everyone could have the games for Wednesday and Thursday available. I was able to update it and finish it actually. So the entire, I think, 12,000 word article, whatever it is, the matchup piece is updated now. Rob Povia is making it look pretty as we speak, but you can find that over at fantasyguru.com right now. If you want to go over to the site, the weekly matchup piece is live and available to help you set those lineups this week. All right, let's talk a little bit about what we saw. Ray had a day off, and he doesn't remember what button to push. There we go. Let's talk about the Chiefs defeating the Steelers 29-10. Not a surprise. The Chiefs moved to 15-1. Steelers fall to 10-6. I think one of the big storylines here, obviously, is Patrick Mahomes. He had the ankle issue. Is he going to play through it or not? We had that dilemma last week. He played and was effective. Played again yesterday, and to say he was effective, 320 yards and 3 touchdowns, carved up the Steelers. This Jeff Mans has talked so much about the situation with Patrick Mahomes. I won't belabor it here. The Elite Sports Show on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio is Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. When I'm not here on Wednesdays, I'm with Jeff from 3 to 6 on SiriusXM. He's talked on and on about, Patrick Mahomes, and how he's got a bunch of teams in the semifinals, with Patrick Mahomes. Well, there it was, 320-3. So, there's a lot of Johnny-come-latelys. We'll talk about Russell Wilson in a second. We'll talk about C.J. Stroud. Patrick Mahomes not living up to expectations, no doubt about that. But he's completely removed the turnover from his game. He no longer throws interceptions, which is great news. He's now throwing double-digit touchdowns on a semi-regular basis. Again, he had 3 of them yesterday, going over 300 yards as well. It was a classic Patrick Mahomes effort. Classic. And even in a difficult matchup with the Steelers, do we play this guy? Yeah. By the way, the rankings have been updated over at fantasyguru.com. What do we have Patrick Mahomes this week? I think we had him like 10th. We didn't have him super high. What do we got here? Patrick Mahomes. No, we had him lower. Wow, interesting enough. We had him the lowest we've had him in maybe all season long. And he had one of his best games. But a strong game against the Steelers in that difficult matchup yesterday for Patrick Mahomes. I see a question here. And let's just address it. Young Native Tino 64. Will Andy Reid rest his top players week 18 if Bills lose and sweep the Bengals? That is an unknown question at this time. The Chiefs, I believe the Chiefs have clinched home field advantage throughout the playoffs. I think the Texans clinched the 4th spot too. So I don't think either team technically has something to play for. I could be wrong with the Chiefs. I think that's the case though. So I think they're locked in. Week 18, we'll see. There is a varied history, and we'll get into this more next week. There is a varied history of teams and the results they have if they rest players. Especially if you're, one of these teams like you're having a bye early, like you're going to go 2 weeks without playing a game, which technically is 3 weeks. I don't think that you want to do that. We'll see. We'll get a lot more information. I haven't heard anything yet. It's way too early to have the answers to that anyway, but we'll see. We'll see. All right. Let's go a little bit further and talk Chiefs. Isaiah Pacheco hurt his ribs. Boy, did this one blow up in everyone's face. The Isaiah Pacheco is going to return and take over the backfield. And thanks, Kareem Hunt. We appreciate you, and we're going to have you around as a support piece. That never really happened. And the last couple of weeks in particular, Kareem Hunt is, out touching Pacheco. And yesterday he hurt his ribs too. Let's be clear about this. The Steelers did stop the Chiefs from running the football. The lead runner yesterday was Kareem Hunt with 20 rushing yards, so it's not like he did anything. Now, he did get in the end zone, so for those of you that were desperate and played him, I don't think he should have. Okay, for those of you that went with Pacheco, 18 yards on the ground, no catches, the rib injury, just bad. And so now, what are the Chiefs doing? The Chiefs have all these weapons. They have all these ways to attack. They're 15-1. It'll be really interesting to see how they run this offense come playoff time. because there is a line of thought that says the Chiefs have basically slow played this whole thing. They just won football games, and they're saving their big guns for the playoffs. I don't know. We'll have to obviously see if Pacheco is healthy. But that whole situation in the backfield, again, just devolved into craziness where Kareem Hunt's kind of still the one. And it's happened multiple weeks now in a row. It's really an interesting scenario that's played itself out there with Pacheco. Xavier Worthy was the big pass catcher at the wide receiver spot. 8 catches for 79 yards and a touchdown. Also had a couple of carries. Pacheco has, in the first half of the season, was, he couldn't get his feet down inbounds. We made fun of him, rightly so, here on the show over and over again. He would in and out of the offense. It'd be, 1 catch, 2 catch, 3 catch. He'd be lucky to hit 35 yards. Like he wasn't part of the offense. In the second half of the season, he's become a significant part of this offense. And he's basically catching 4 or 5 passes for 50 yards every week. It's not great. It's not exciting. But it's basically 10 PPR points every week. And then you get the splash efforts like yesterday. 8 for 79 and a touchdown. That's a big effort. For those people that drafted him, to be your wide receiver 3, I guess, in the majority of leagues. He's been that guy. It hasn't been even. It hasn't been consistent week to week. But the second half of the season, he's been much better. Again, he's now really a significant part of this offense. And we saw another strong effort for him yesterday against the Steelers. Speaking of strong efforts, Marquise Brown came back, had 4 catches in both his games, 4 or 5 catches in both his games. What is it? Something like that. Let me pull this up to verify that. But Marquise Brown has basically come back and been fine. He's been a key contributor to the offense without being anything exciting. 5 for 45, 4 for 46. So basically been the same guy both times out. 8 targets one time, 7 targets the other. He's only played 43 snaps in 2 games. So there's a little bit of that, how much he's one of those guys that you would have to think plays a significant role in week 18, even if they rest players, because they're going to continue to ramp him up and get him ready for the playoffs. But he's been a solid piece of the offense for 2 straight weeks now. And those of you playing DFS and wagering, and we'll talk to Tyler Buecher about week 18 in a few minutes. Yeah, maybe Marquise Brown gets a little bit of interest there. Travis Kelce yesterday, 8 catches for 84 yards and a touchdown, more like it. Kelce goes over 1,000 yards. He's having another Hall of Fame worthy season. Compared to his exploits, did I say 1,000 yards? He didn't go over 1,000 yards. He's 3 catches from 100 catches. That's what I meant to say. He's not going to get to 1,000 yards. They're not going to let him get 175 yards in the final week of the season. He's going to have one of the worst 100-catch seasons in NFL history. As we sit here right now, 97 catches, 823 yards, and 3 scores. So that's really weak, but came through yesterday for those of you that had him in the fantasy playoffs. Obviously, this is huge. It's championship week. He'd scored under 10 points in 3 straight games coming into yesterday. Yesterday, 22 spot. How about that? Coming through big time. And it's weird to say it's championship week because it's still just Thursday. But he came through in championship week, did Travis Kelce. On the other side of things, Pittsburgh, they got back George Pickens. And the belief and hope was that Pickens would help reinvigorate the passing attack of the Steelers because he and Russell Wilson had really showed a nice connection. When Pickens had been down, it'd been really nothing exciting or substantial. 200 yards was a struggle for Russell Wilson. Well, he had Pickens back yesterday. He got to 205 yards. Pickens had a 41-yard catch. Let's go. 7 targets, 3 catches, 50 yards. And, this is the George Pickens experience. It's a difficult matchup, obviously, with the Chiefs. The Steelers get by keeping games close and winning with their defense and running the clock out and ball control. That's what they do. And they didn't have the opportunity to do that yesterday against a better team, the Chiefs. They're still not a team that anyone's going to want to face in the playoffs. And they're still a team whose defense can cause havoc. But the passing attack is really hit or miss. It was disappointing yesterday with Pickens because, again, he had established himself as a guy that was routinely giving you, 10, 12 points. Let's pull it up real quickly here just to verify what I'm saying because it was Christmas yesterday. I don't know what the hell I'm saying right now. I had an eggnog that was spiked last night when watching It's a Wonderful Life, which was kind of nice at the end of the day after the long day. You look at his performances here. The previous 4 games, he had averaged, 15.6 PPR points. So about 15 PPR points there. Going back even further, if you go back and look at his previous 6 games, he was at 16 PPR points. Yesterday was 8. So that was a little bit of a rough go of it. But again, it's George Pickens. He's yelling and screaming on the sidelines, all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I don't have George Pickens on any of my teams. He's so talented, so tough to trust. Speaking of the passer, Russell Wilson, he got to the 205 yards, no touchdowns and an interception, ran for 55 yards and a score. So there it is. If you played Russell Wilson yesterday, you got your payoff because he ran for 55 yards and had a touchdown. That's rare. That's obviously the best rushing game he's had all year. It's going to be the best rushing game he has all year, no matter how long this team plays. They can go to the Super Bowl. He's not going to repeat that. He may not have a game like that next year if he's the quarterback of the Steelers or another team. But he came through yesterday with that. 37 pass attempts, 205 yards, and no touchdowns. Pretty rough. Jaylen Warren, it took Jaylen Warren 3 years, but it seems like he's finally passed Najee Harris. Now, I say that, and Najee Harris did outrush him yesterday, though it was a lot of late stuff when the game was out of reach. It was 13 carries for Harris and 11 for Warren. The thing with Warren is, I think it's fair to argue at this point of the season that he has passed Najee Harris in fantasy importance. We've seen it multiple weeks in a row now. Harris ran for 74 yards, had 2 catches for 7 yards. Jaylen Warren ran for 71 yards and had 5 catches for 41 yards. Warren never gets carries, though. They always split the carries. And so Warren, if he catches 5 for 41 as he did yesterday, you get a hit, right? If it's 2 catches for 11 yards, it's kind of just because he's not the goal line back. And they're still going to give the ball to Najee Harris on the ground. But Harris gave you 10 PPR points, and Warren gave you 9 as a pass catcher, right? So he doubled basically 16 PPR points for Warren. Okay, didn't double, 75% better. Warren had a big game. If you played Warren, you got your payoff. If you played Harris, disappointing that touchdown went to Russell Wilson, but 74 rushing yards and 2 catches is kind of what Harris has been. And given what we've seen the last couple of weeks out of Harris, it wasn't a bad effort for him. Finally, Pat Freiermuth, 70 for 60. He is what he is. A little bit of a wonky game yesterday, but he saw 8 targets. He actually led the team in targets. I don't know if that's winning football when you got George Pickens on your team, but he came through and had a solid effort yesterday, even without the touchdown. He's needed the touchdown to have that solid effort. Didn't need it yesterday for the Steelers. Ravens, if we move on to the Ravens and Texans. Texans are 9-7. The Ravens are moved to 11-5. The Ravens obviously were favorites here. They won this football game handily. Texans got 2 points. This offense of the Texans, and we'll get to it in a second, it's just the Ravens, again, 31 points here. Lamar Jackson threw 15 passes, but he threw for 2 scores and ran for another. He also ran for 87 yards, but he had 3 touchdowns yesterday despite throwing 15 passes. He's just, he has been so unbelievably good this year in the fantasy game. And I struggle to find why. There have been times all throughout the season where people have asked if they should bench. I've gotten questions almost every week. Should I bench Lamar Jackson? It's like, wow. How could you be doing that? But anyway, he didn't really get asked to do anything. He had, again, 15 passes. He only had 4 rushes. So that's only 19 attempts if you look at it that way. 3 touchdowns. That's get 87 yards rushing, 170 passing, 250 yards of offense and 3 touchdowns, and basically had 19 touches if you look at it that way. Just another great effort for him. But the offense really yesterday was about Derrick Henry. And, I've read some stuff, people were talking about, he had a great game, 147 yards and a touchdown. He caught 2 balls for 18 yards, a massive fantasy effort. But people were kind of left wanting more. It's like if this game had been closer, Derrick Henry might have run for 200 yards yesterday. And we've seen him run for 200 yards a bunch of times in his career. I don't think anyone should be disappointed with 147 and a touchdown. So let's not get – and he had a couple of catches too there to give it a little extra boost. He had struggled to hit 75 yards on a consistent basis about the last month. So seeing him basically double that yesterday and getting that end zone, great effort for Derrick Henry. And, everyone knows who Derrick Henry is and has been and will continue to be as long as he's a part of this Ravens team. There really hasn't been much of a slowdown from him this year. And it could happen in the offseason, right? There were whispers about Deebo Samuel before his last game. Did he just lose it overnight? Derrick Henry, not getting any younger. Hits are still accruing with him. But with the way they run this offense and the success they've had with Lamar Jackson, as expected, the duo of Henry and Jackson in the backfield has been a huge hit for the Ravens. Let's see here. Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. Let's talk a little tight ends. Isaiah Likely didn't do anything. He had 1 stinking target. Now, it happened to be a 9-yard touchdown. So, okay, good for him. If you played him, right, you got 1 point there. You got 1 point there. You got 6 points there. He scored a touchdown, didn't even get 8 points. It was 7.9 in a PPR. Yeah. Certainly not the guy that everyone thought he'd be. Not everyone, I should say. Everyone else. We didn't at fantasyguru.com say, go get Isaiah Likely's the top 5 tight end the rest of the season after everyone else did in week 1. He's continued to sporadically pop up on the chart here. There's just not a lot of volume in the passing attack for him. And it's really about scoring the touchdowns. And, his teammate, Mark Andrews, it's really about scoring the touchdowns with Mark Andrews, too. 2 catches yesterday, 68 yards, and a touchdown. And it's really remarkable because I will take you back to the week 1. And I will take you back to Isaiah Likely. And Isaiah Likely explodes in week 1. Isaiah Likely has 9 catches for 111 yards and a touchdown. Only game this season was 17 PPR points. It was week 1. He had 26. And he was a star. And everyone, I saw people spend 95+% of their budgets to add Isaiah Likely. And I saw experts say to spend a large portion of your budget on Isaiah Likely. Why? Because, Mark Andrews had 2 catches for 14 yards in week 1. And Mark Andrews, through 5 games, had 120 yards. He'd done nothing. Since then, Mark Andrews, touchdown, 10 scores in 11 games. So hopefully you kept the faith with Mark Andrews. Hopefully you didn't bite the bullet. That's not the right way to say it. Hopefully you didn't dive all in on Isaiah Likely, because that just Mark Andrews, you look at it and it's, it's not crazy good because he's averaging 4 catches or for 45 yards. But 10 touchdowns in 11 games for Mark Andrews. Boom goes that dynamite. I don't know how to spell my namesake, Zay Flowers, which is rather remarkable given it is my name. Yeah, I know. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about him before we move on to some NFL news. Or actually to the Houston side of things and talking to Tyler Buecher in a few minutes. Zay Flowers didn't do anything. 2 catches, 31 yards, terribly disappointing. He had the shoulder issue. He's okay physically. Again, huge downer in terms of his production. Huge downer. But, and it doesn't help anybody that played him in fantasy, he had a 33% target share. He had 5 of the 15 targets. Or 5 of the 17 targets, actually, Joe Johnson threw 2. So he had a 30% target share. That's elite. Just didn't amount to anything, so that was really disappointing. Speaking of disappointing, the Texans, CJ Stroud, arm a little bit beat up. He missed a snap. He seems to be okay. His arm's a little bit beat up. He missed passes yesterday. It was another poor fantasy effort. 185 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. And hey, look, Stephon Diggs is out. That's a problem, right? Tank Dell is out. That's a problem. As we talk about a lot, expecting any quarterback to lose 2 of his top 3 weapons, it's very difficult to have success. But if you look at CJ Stroud and you look at his last 10 games played, he's averaging 16 points. 16? And in that period of time, he's got 9 touchdown passes in 10 games. That stinks. He's averaging 210 yards and less than a touchdown a game. Bryce Young is there. That's Bryce Young stuff. We talk about Stroud and his ability in the pocket and his teammates being injured in the offensive line and what he's done, what his talent dictates he could do and how success he had. Bottom line is he's been Bryce Young for 2 months. And we saw it again yesterday. 2 points. He led this offense to 2 points. Jeff Mann said it repeatedly this offseason. Everyone anointed CJ Stroud as the next thing, and he said year 2 is when we need to see year 2 with these young quarterbacks. Year 2 with CJ Stroud has not been a step forward. You could make an argument because of everything going around him. It's been an equal effort to last season. I would not make that effort. I think he's regressed. Still going to be the face of this franchise. Still will be fine long term. But his season this year, just not good. Just not good, no matter what has gone on around him. Speaking of what was going on around him yesterday, Nico Collins, 3 catches for 59 yards, led this team. And Nico Collins was the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy at the start of the year, and then he got hurt. He was literally, I think, the number 1 receiver in football through 5 games in a PPR setup. Then he came back, and his first 4 games back, he averaged 15, 17 PPR points. So it was a little down, but he scored 3 touchdowns in the 4 games. Everything's fine. Against Kansas City last week, 7 catches for 60 yards. That's fine. Yesterday, 3 for 59. That's not fine. That's the second time in 3 games now he hasn't gotten to 60 yards. And it's the third time in 6 games since he's been back he hasn't gotten to 60 yards. So 3 of 6, he's been under 60 yards. The first 5 games this season, he averaged what? He was averaging 113. Barely getting to 3 of the last 6 games, he's barely gotten to half of what he was averaging to start the year. Again, Diggs was there and Dell was there. It's different. Okay. But, I mean, everyone started Nico Collins yesterday. You should have started Nico Collins yesterday. They were down by 100,000 points. They should have been throwing. He should have had 12 targets yesterday. He had 6. Again, this offense is broken. I mean, if we're being honest, John Metchie had 5 catches for 48 yards, was the leading receiver for this team. The offense is broken. Dalton Schultz. Where was Dalton Schultz yesterday? Diggs is out. Tank Dell is out. Let's go, Dalton Schultz. 6 targets. Okay, that's not bad. 2 catches for 21 yards. Now, a couple of those passes from Stroud wasn't Schultz's fault. He didn't catch those passes, right? Like, Stroud was off. But 2 for 21? Come on, man. And then you look at, Joe Mixon, and, Mixon's an aging player. And he's actually been great on the road and just been a dude at home. And his production has slowed down here. But throughout a lot of the struggles this team was having in the mid part of the season, Joe Mixon was still producing and getting it done. He was the driving force of this offense. Yesterday, he had 9 carries for 26 yards, 2 carries for 13 yards. From weeks 12 to 15 in those 3 games, because there's a bye, he caught 5 balls, 4 balls, and 5 balls. Okay, so he's catching 4.5 passes a game for those 3 games. The last 2 games combined, he's caught 3. So in the past, when there was a problem with the offense, they still threw the ball to him, and he still got his PPR points, everything like that. Now the offense isn't working, and they're not throwing him the ball. So he's not doing anything there. Since the bye week, and remember this, before the bye week, he played 10 games, and he was averaging 89 yards a game on the ground. Over the last 3 games since the bye, he's run for 23, 57, and 26 yards, averaging 35 yards, not even half of what he was doing previously. So he's not even doing half of what he was doing previously on the ground, and he's gone from catching 4 passes plus to catching 1.5. And again, offensive line issues, okay. Maybe wearing down a little bit, age, being beat up physically, okay. But this offense is just, right now, incapable of doing anything through the air. And as a result of being incapable of doing anything through the air, they're not consistently being able to run. So, if you're playing DFS or wagering or anything in Week 18, if you're playing seasonal in Week 18, it's going to be tough to get excited about the Texans. It's just not looking good for that offense right now. Some news and notes before we talk to Tyler Beaker, kind of break down Thursday Night Football. An update on James Conner. James Conner is making good progress in his recovery from his knee injury, according to head coach John Gannon. Who knows what the hell that means? But he's making good progress. Trey Benson, we may not know his status until Friday. So we're waiting on that. So it sounds like Benson on a Thursday morning is further away from playing than James Conner. We'll have to see. This is a big issue for those people that believe in handcuffing as we do. If you had James Conner, you got Trey Benson. Now we don't know if either guy is playing. It's likely Michael Carter if neither of those guys are going. We talked about that on Monday on the show here. That's a scenario that we'll have to watch closely. There is no update on the Jalen Hurts situation with his head injury, according to his head coach, Nick Sirianni. He was listed as a DNP yesterday on the practice schedule. I don't think they actually practiced, but he was listed as a DNP, and there's no update today, meaning it looks like he's going to be a DNP again. Starting to look more likely that Hurts will miss the game this week. Again, early in the weeks, this can still turn around. We'll see, but that's the information there. Ramondre Stevenson, according to his head coach, is because of the ball security issues. Jared Mayo basically said, well, yeah, when he was asked a question, maybe we'll go with Gibson this week instead of Stevenson. Ooh. So you've got Ramondre Stevenson, not great. So be very cautious if you've got Ramondre Stevenson and you're starting in with confidence here because his head coach basically said, we're not sure what the backfield situation is going to look like this week. And when the head coach says that, because they don't normally say that, they just do it. When the head coach actually says that, I get a little bit nervous. So we'll continue to follow this and all the stories all week long at fantasyguru.com. Myself and the rest of the staff will be in Discord today answering questions. I got a ton of questions because a lot of you apparently don't take a holiday. Take a holiday, folks. You should have been asking questions all this time. We'll get to it today. I'll do it right after the show here and get a bunch of answers sent out. Again, the Discord room over at fantasyguru.com. If you're not part of what we got at FG, send a note through email to support@fantasyguru.com. Support@fantasyguru.com. You can click the subscribe tab in the top right corner of the page. Click on that. You get the seasonal, the DFS, and the wagering, all three of them, the rest of the way through the playoffs in one package. And when you do that, you get access to our next guest, or our guest today. He is the guest today. He's our the guest every Thursday. It's Tyler Beaker of fantasyguru.com. You can find him here about 12:30 Eastern Standard Time every Thursday. You can find him at FG breaking down seasonal information for football. You can see him on Friday nights hosting the live stream for the DFS game. You can see him in the Discord room talking all the time in both those zones, as well as giving advice and laying out tons of bets that he's had lots of success with, especially here down the stretch. Jeff Mans was talking about this the other day. He and Jeff are on a heater, as they say, in the betting game. Let's bring him in. He's our man, Tyler Beaker. How you doing, Tyler?
What's going on, Ray? Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. I hope everybody's doing well and had a profitable Wednesday. We had some pretty big bangers over in the Fantasy Guru betting Discord, as you were just talking about. Hoping to keep that money train rolling as we enter Thursday Night Football here tonight.
Yeah, same to you. Happy holidays and all that stuff. Appreciate you spending time with us here the day after, Tyler. And Jeff was saying this too, just to hit on that a little bit more directly, the wagering thing. A lot of people in this space will, I'm up 726 units and this kind of stuff. They'll throw a bet down where it's a 9-unit bet, and you're like, what the hell are you doing? You don't do that, right? Like, you're basically doing half or 1 unit bets the majority of the time. So if you say to people, hey, I'm up 25 units, that's a plus 25. That's not 2 bets that were just huge that you took 9, 10, 12 units on, correct?
That's correct, yeah. Usually almost every single one of my plays will be 1 or a half unit. I like to do half unit plays on like touchdowns and longest rushes, longest receptions, interceptions. Some of those plays that have a bit more variability to them. Most of them are 1 unit plays. I've been tracking my bets for 5 years now. I think I have 20 total, maybe 30 total multi-unit plays across 500, 600, 700. I don't even know how many plays it's been listed. But they're very few and far between. We did play one this past Wednesday, though. We did do the money line on the Chiefs and the Ravens. Both teams blew the doors off their opponents. So that was a no sweat multi-unit win at plus odds. Better. So it was a great day over on Fantasy Guru.
Tyler Beaker of FG again every Thursday. He joins us here on the show. Before we get to Thursday Night Football and a couple of news and notes, I wanted to ask you about news items. I wanted to talk briefly, because we've already had the question here in the chat room. A lot of leagues don't play Week 18. Most leagues have their finals this week. People are nervous, about whether or not teams are going to play their guys next week. So I think it's probably, I'm guessing, 95% of leagues are this week for their finals. For next week, I always have been stunned, Tyler, by the amount of people that don't play Week 18. Like, they'll send us 500 questions in Discord throughout the year. They're constantly checking their phone. They're constantly making trades, and then Week 18 hits and they just stop playing. What do you recommend people do in Week 18? Should they be playing seasonal still in Week 18? Should they do DFS? Should they bet? Should they do nothing? How should people handle it?
I agree with the masses where we see about 95%, like you said, of leagues ending in Week 17. To me, that feels accurate given how the NFL is set up and the importance of a bye week for these number 1 seeds. We just saw the Chiefs secure it for them yesterday in that win. Now, I mean, what do these teams have to play entering Week 18? Very, very few teams have things in terms of like position jockeying, in terms of like seeding. Many of these teams are eliminated. Many of these teams benefit from losing in terms of getting a superior draft pick. I think ending Week 17 is the right move for most of these squads. Worst thing you want to happen is have a player you've been depending on all season long as your anchor to your fantasy squad be a healthy scratch in Week 18 when it matters most, when titles are on the line. So I think ending Week 17 is the smart move. I personally don't play much in Week 18 either. I understand the weeks 1 through 17 grind because, the end goal is the championship. But once that championship is played, I understand taking Week 18 off, maybe regrouping. It's also during the holidays, during New Year's, so people are often traveling. There's many reasons for less volume in Week 18. As a DFS player, as a bettor, there are also some like incentive laden wagers that people tend to play. just be aware, like that was a hidden thing years ago. The books are very cognizant how far away many players are from hitting the 1,000-yard mark, hitting their contract incentive bonuses. Everybody knows these things now. There's no stone left unturned, especially by these sports books that are putting out these lines. As far as DFS goes, I play light volume as well. I think that there's a lot of variability. Slates last year were won by like Carson Wentz versus Sam Darnold, like weird games like that. To me, it's just a slate to go light on in terms of volume. Maybe only play tournaments, maybe skip out on the cash games if you've been playing them all season long, and really just get ready for the wild card round, where I think it's a lot more fun in terms of a smaller slate and players playing competitively with everything on the line. Far, far different than week 18. So that's kind of my overarching thoughts on all those concepts there. What about you? Are you a big week 18 player?
No, because I don't. For me, I spend so much of my time and focus on the seasonal piece. Like jumping into DFS at this point, I just feel kind of like I'm too late to the game, which I know I'm telling the listeners to play DFS, and then I kind of say, I probably will throw just a lineup in, just like one, just something to, because again, I'll be doing the analysis. You'll be doing the analysis. The articles will still be up. We'll still be doing the live stream, still be doing this show. Like we're still doing the work next week. So I just, I kind of start gearing toward the fantasy playoffs, or that, because we always do the one and done leagues and all that kind of stuff, and we'll talk more about that here on the show. I know that Jeff Mans on the Elite Sports Show has already said there's like 94 open spots in our league this year. But yeah, I don't. Yeah, maybe I'll tell some of your bets. You and Jeff, I mean, you guys have been killing it, especially of late. So maybe I'll do that. Again, everyone can do that. Go to fantasyguru.com, click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. But it's just weird for me because I'm still writing. I don't feel like I'm shutting it down, even if I'm not setting lineups all over the place because I'm still doing the work. But yeah, I don't generally play as much. So yeah, it's good. Touche. Good point. You got me. Let's talk a little bit about some of these bigger picture ideas for this week. And I wanted to ask you about a couple of running back scenarios before we directly dive into the games tonight. Kendre Miller didn't do anything last week. It was a huge disappointment. At this point for the Saints, theoretically, we don't know who the quarterback is. We don't know if Alvin Kamara is going to play. If Kamara is out, are we out on Kendre Miller? I mean, last week, just like everything that went wrong could have. And it was the first team that was shut out all season long, the Saints. Is Miller still in play as like a flex option this week if Kamara is out, or did you see enough next week to turn you off to it?
Yeah, I did a Monday Night Football game script preview where I dove into this matchup quite a bit heading into last week's Packers-Saints kerfuffle. I don't know. What do we call that? But one thing that I noted was the quotes from the coaches talking about how they wanted to get Jamal Williams and Jordan Mims all involved. And we saw that happen in terms of them siphoning away some opportunities and snaps from Miller. Probably happened to a larger degree than many of us expected. But we have to keep in mind, the Saints were a 14-point underdog on the road, playing in freezing temperatures with Spencer Rattler as their lead quarterback. What did we expect here? We weren't going to get a 20-point outing from Kendre Miller. Right. The amount of hopium in the Kendre balloon was just insane to me.
Hopium, I like that. Nice.
Yeah, people were just... Okay, fast forward, we're in week 17 now. Right. The fantasy football game is played on a week-to-week level. Very, very different situation now. They're playing at home, hosting the Raiders in a 1.5 point spread. Very, very close game, should be competitive. Aiden O'Connell could only dink and dunk to the running backs and tight ends last week. I think he had 1 or 2 completions of 10-plus air yards. Far different than Jordan Love and that very efficient rushing game that the Packers unleashed against the Saints. So, in my eyes, the Raiders are a middling matchup in terms of run defense. It's a spot for Kendre Miller, who was really kind of pulled off late in the game in a heavy passing script for the Saints in favor of Jordan Mims. For better or worse, we got those, I think it was 8 targets for Mims. He dropped 3 of them. This type of game environment against a middling Raiders run defense, which is top 12 in rushing yards per game, it makes me feel much more confident plugging Kendre Miller in as a flex. I agree. Not anything higher. We're not like expecting top 15, top 20 production, but I like where our rankings have him at RB25, right on that cusp of RB2, RB3. That feels appropriate right now for what we're expecting and what should be a competitive game. Again, we got to wait for final injury reports and everything like that. But these are 2 teams fighting for nothing right now. I think we're going to see a run-heavy approach from both squads.
Tyler Beaker, fantasyguru.com. What about the Niners' Isaac Guerendo? It sounds like he's going to return from his one-game absence. In theory, we want to start the Niners running back every week. I don't know if it changes. Trent Williams is out. They lost a couple other offensive linemen. Like, they're just bleeding O-linemen. The game, the team finally got a little something out of Deebo Samuel last week, but, the offensive line has struggled to pass pro at times too for Brock Purdy. Guerendo, fire him up if he's out there still.
So it's a tough one because they play the Lions, who are fighting still for the NFC North. They're fighting for some seeding. They have something to fight for. The Niners, they've been eliminated for some time now. Trent Williams has been out for quite a bit for personal reasons, more than the injury, I believe. Right. Probably looking at the end of his career. Awesome player. Guerendo, though, trending well, quote unquote, per noted liar, Kyle Shanahan. So we'll see what happens there. My advice right now, it's Thursday. Just continue to keep tabs on it. There's only one game tonight, but there are three on Saturday. So we have to make some moves. Hopefully we get an update, a confirmation on Friday, whether or not Guerendo's back and ready to go. Hopefully we get like a full participation mark. That's what we're hoping for. When I look at running backs against the Lions in recent weeks, they've lost a lot of players on that defense due to injury. Like every level. Defensive line, linebacker, in the secondary. Last week they held DeAndre Swift to 20 rushing yards, though. The week prior to that, though, they were bludgeoned for 14, 105, and 2 by James Cook. The week prior to that, 18, 66, and 3 by Josh Jacobs. That wasn't bad. They still held him under 4 yards per carry there. That's notable. DeAndre Swift again, 11 for 39. Jonathan Taylor the week prior to that, 11 for 35. So what I'm looking at here is if the Niners don't get buried, Guerendo has a solid chance at putting up a decent outing. However, if they fall behind quickly, there's a chance he gets capped at 12 carries with probably not much more rush volume there, as the team will have to throw to keep pace. The Niners can do that. They can go toe-to-toe with some of these teams. They're a good squad. They're just on the far end of the injury pendulum this year, where it's just too many to overcome. In my eyes, I think Guerendo is still an RB2 play, probably more towards the front end if we get a full participation mark on Friday. However, until we get that news, we just have to kind of be in limbo here. So don't set your lineups now. There's no need to. We'll wait until we get more information. But that's where I'm looking at Guerendo right now. I think there's some variability, and if the Niners get blown out, I don't think they do, though. I think this is a team that can fight back well enough. And Guerendo has some hands. He is a high school receiver. We saw that first game he got the start. I think it was like a 30-yard catch to open the game. He had a really, really big explosive pass play down the sideline. So he's not a one-dimensional back. I'm keeping the light on for him.
Tyler Beaker, fantasyguru.com. Let's transition over to Thursday Night Football. It's so weird since we already had the games, but it's Thursday. Yeah. Thursday Night Football. And we got some big news in the backfield with Seattle. Let's start there. Seattle's going to be without Kenneth Walker, which means it's back to Zach Charbonnet. And, that's if people have, maybe people that had Charbonnet aren't playing this week. So, how this goes, right? Because last week nothing happened, and that's how it goes. But it looks like it's Charbonnet or bust this week. I know he's got the oblique issue, but it doesn't seem like there's much concern there with Seattle. Is this a game where Seattle's going to try to control the ball on the ground? And do you look at Charbonnet and think he's getting 20 touches and fire him up?
Yeah, I do think they do have a good shot at getting Charbonnet really heavily involved. We've seen some really big, heavy usage outings from him in games where Walker's been sidelined. And this is a run funnel. The Bears are 24th in EPA per rush. They're 29th in explosive run rate. So Charbonnet, we've seen him rip off some explosive gains from time to time. Usually we think of Walker as that guy, but Charbonnet is not excluded from that conversation either. Last time he was in a game where the Seahawks were favored and he was the starter, he tallied 134 rushing yards and 2 scores against the Cardinals. I'm thinking we could see another ceiling type outing here from him. The Bears team, 9 losses in a row. They are not doing well right now. We could see some weather in terms of rain and temperatures in the low 40s. Not exactly conducive to high volume pass matchups. And Seattle's been a pass heavy offense, but this is a team almost every offense shifts to the ground against because they've been so poor against it. I think we'll see kind of a middling outing from the passing attack from Seattle, but really lean on Charbonnet here, especially if the game script holds up where they are favored. Right now as a 4-point road favorite, I envision them covering that spread and doing well.
Got to talk about the passing attack. And, Geno Smith is just a guy. right? He's just a guy. It's okay. You can have a long career, make a lot of money being just a guy. The offense is kind of sputtered out. Really, through the air, it's JSN, and that's kind of it. There's 47 tight ends that catch a pass or two. There's no depth. Tyler Lockett barely catches 3 passes anymore in a game. DK Metcalf is hit or miss in the offense. Geno Smith was pissed off at him at the end of the game last week because he thought he ran the wrong route. Talk to us a little bit more about the passing attack. Is it just as simple as saying, well, yeah, JSN, we start him and everything else, or is there something else you're seeing in the matchup that might lead you to think Geno Smith's not a bad play this week and maybe DK Metcalf the same?
Yeah, Geno will be taking on a Bears defense that has kind of a subpar pass rush. They're 20th in pass rush win rate. They're 18th in blitz rate, so they don't really get after it that often. But they are a very cover 3 heavy defense. They play it at the second highest rate in the league. And Geno doesn't really stand out against cover 3 coverage. If we look at his splits against that, he has a 71% completion rate. That's great. It's very serviceable. But he has a 3 to 4 touchdown to interception ratio all season long, 0.33 fantasy points per drop back. It's very middling. Like, I'm looking at Geno as a quarterback 2 to play in Superflex 2 QB formats, not a guy I'd want to start in a single QB situation. However, when we look at cover 3 splits for his wideouts, DK Metcalf shines in this type of coverage scheme pretty well. 2.07 yards per out run leads the team. But what really stands out for him is a 47% air yard share, where they are going to him almost every other deep pass. I like the matchup against a cover 3 shell, where they've got Jaylen Johnson, one great cornerback on one side, and then Tyreek Stevenson, a not-so-good cornerback on the other side. For those that are unfamiliar with Tyreek Stevenson, he was the guy who was taunting the Washington crowd during the Hail Mary where the Bears lost. Yeah. Did not go well, no. Stevenson's been a bottom-dwelling PFF-graded cornerback all season long. Johnson, the exact opposite spectrum. So my thoughts are, anytime they get DK versus Stevenson, they're going to take those vertical shots. And this team, this Bears defense, they have players. They're just not doing well either. They're similar to the San Francisco squad. The Bears are just not playing well defensively. And as such, they've given up explosive pass plays at one of the highest rates over the last 8 weeks. I think we could see DK get going vertically after last week. We saw a splash of it with the touchdown. I think we see another big explosive play for DK, 1 or 2 in this matchup here. And then you mentioned JSN, just rock solid performer ever since, I think it was week 8 or something like that. He's cleared 69 receiving yards in 8 of his last 8 games. Very nice. He's averaging 8.9 targets per game during that span. He's the wide receiver 2 during the span in PPR formats. That's phenomenal. 20.7 fantasy points per game. This guy is pretty much matchup proof in my eyes in terms of benching him for seasonal championships. You're not doing that. This is not a layup matchup, though. The Bears are giving up the second fewest fantasy points per game to the slot. So very opposite end of the spectrum in terms of like a layup matchup. However, we're weighing volume versus matchup, and I will always side with volume and targets over the matchup. So give me JSN as a, let's say, top 24 option. Metcalf as a top 30.
Tyler Beaker, fantasyguru.com. Let's flip it to the other side of things. Let's talk about the passing attack of the Bears. Let's start out with the quarterback, Caleb Williams. There's a lot of people, and Jeff Mann's talked about this a lot. They don't like Caleb Williams because of his attitude. They don't like him because he paints his fingernails, whatever. His stats are pretty damn good. He doesn't turn the ball over through the air anymore. He's pushing to be a quarterback 1 on the season, which I think a lot of people haven't picked up on. There's still moments in every game where you're like, it's like sometimes he runs around too much and the offensive line and all that kind of stuff. But where are we at with Caleb Williams specifically this week? Is he somebody that profiles as somebody you would start with confidence, or is he still, a mid-level quarterback too?
Yeah, he's had like a tumultuous season. I think that's how I would best describe it in terms of like the start to finish of where we are right now. But ever since that change of going from Shane Waldron to Thomas Brown at play caller, we've seen a light click. Caleb's percentage points on his completion rate has jumped a full 4 percentage points. His pass ratings jumped up nearly 20 percentage points. Has not thrown an interception since the bye, as you mentioned. Very few turnovers in terms of the passing game. There are some fumbles. Yes. Okay. Whatever, that happens. But we've seen some marked improvement from him. From weeks 1 through 10, he was quarterback 29 in completion percentage over expectation and EPA per play among all QBs with 200 dropbacks, ahead of only 2 guys, Deshaun Watson and Jacoby Brissett. We look at his matchups and performance these last 6 weeks. He's now quarterback 19 in the same stat, ahead of guys like Justin Herbert, Brock Purdy, CJ Stroud. there's been some growth and development, and a lot of it's been due to him rushing the ball a bit more frequently and getting the ball out quicker. Those are things that he really struggled, I think, in the beginning of the season. We've seen his rushing attempts per game jump. I think it's like plus 1.2 or so over this last 6 weeks relative to the first 10. And the Seahawks defense, they're kind of just a middling matchup. They're 13th in completion rate allowed, 13th in passing touchdown rate allowed, 16th in passing yards per game, 15th in fantasy points per game allowed. So very middling across the board. What they do, though, in terms of scheme, Seattle's very too high. And Caleb Williams has a 14-1 touchdown to interception ratio against too high. I like him to throw 2 touchdowns here. So I think he's a front end quarterback 2 play, like QB 13 to 15. Give me that kind of border range for what I expect from him in this matchup here. Again, they're going to be trailing, should be throwing. Not a bad matchup.
What about the wide receivers? I think at this point, everyone's starting DJ Moore. I think most people at this point really want to start Keenan Allen, who's come on, here the last couple of weeks. And Odunze is like, break glass in case of emergency kind of thing. Because, it's just, he's a rookie and it's just, he's growing and that's fine. What are we looking at in this matchup tonight with Seattle? Is there an advantage for Moore or Allen? Is Odunze, is there something in there that says, well, maybe Odunze is going to have one of those splash weeks, or are we going to see more of what we've seen here the last couple of weeks out of the receivers?
I think we're going to see more of the same, where it's been Keenan Allen and DJ Moore as the 1A, 1B, and it's working. Like Keenan Allen's been doing a great job in the slot, has a 55% slot rate this season. Matchup against Devin Witherspoon, who is number 2 among all corners in missed tackles. We also have a very high target share for Keenan Allen against too high coverage, 33%. He's got back-to-back 13 target games. I really like the spot for him. The Seahawks, they're 21st in fantasy points per game to outside wide receivers, but that elevates to 11th in fantasy points per game to the slot. Good spot for Keenan Allen. I think he's going to ride that hot streak another week. And then DJ Moore, heavily involved, picked up at least 6 receptions every game since Thomas Brown has been the play caller. This is not just like downfield stuff. He's getting design screens, design targets to get the ball in his hands quickly. I think these 2 are the guys that you really want to prioritize, and you don't need me to tell you that if you're playing in a seasonal championship. I will just say Odunze and Cole Kmet are distant options in terms of pass pecking order, in terms of the target shares. I have a tough time selecting either of their names with titles on the line. I would not really want to play either one.
I was going to ask you about Kmet, but there it is. Kmet, it's so interesting. Like you talk about the way the offense has stepped forward through the air. As everyone else has stepped forward, he's just receded. He's, rolling the offense is just not
I think
there anymore.
He has 3 total catches over the last 3 weeks. It's just not there. They're giving all that volume to Keenan Allen, pardon me.
Yeah. Tyler Beaker of FantasyGuru.com. What about the rushing game? It's very easy to see or say that people aren't starting DeAndre Swift with any level of confidence. He has not been as productive the last month as he was the first couple of months. He is still, even with Roschon Johnson back, he still dominated snaps. He still dominated routes. He still dominated touches. Didn't do anything. Is it going to be another one of those games tonight where all those things I just said are true and he still doesn't do anything?
I kind of think so. I'm envisioning the Seahawks to be playing with a lead, the Bears to be trailing, going to naturally limit the rush volume and rush opportunities for Swift, who is coming off a bit of a ceiling game, but he's been under 60 rushing yards in 6 of his last 8. Just the yards per carry mark's been dreadful. The production just hasn't been there. Even the pass catching work's been hit or miss and very inconsistent. So I kind of view this as just like a back end RB2 click where you're not excited about it. But if you've been battling Swift versus, let's say you have Swift versus like some of these players that are going to be injury fill-ins, I think you want to seriously weigh the fill-ins over Swift in terms of you're in the championship game, you're playing for ceiling. I don't equate the word ceiling with Swift whatsoever right now. So I think you need to seriously weigh those conversations and reach out to us on Discord if you have any start sits for that specific matchup of Swift versus somebody, because those are the types of questions we love to answer on Thursdays. Guys that are playing on Thursday Night Football relative to other guys for Sundays.
Tyler Beaker, FantasyGuru.com. Before we hit up some of the comments in the chat, Tyler, we were talking earlier about you and Jeff killing it with your bets of late. And you always have a free one here, a teaser bet, if you will. Remember, you can go to FantasyGuru.com, click the subscribe tab in the top right corner, get the wagering, DFS, and seasonal. Get it all for one package. So whether you want to do this or that, get it all for one package for the rest of the season through the playoffs. What do you got for this game tonight between the Bears and the Seahawks?
Yeah. Oh, trying to grab my one window. It's not working. We
I
had
have
a winner
problems this morning too. Don't worry. And it's always something too. Like everything's locked in, everything's going great, and then so it's amazing this all works at the end of the day. I'm here, you're there, the thing's there, this is there. It's working. So what do you got for us tonight, Tyler?
Yeah. Last week we hit on Lad McConkey's receiving yards. Let's try to hit that again with another over on a prop. I'm liking Zach Charbonnet. I told you guys that I think he's going to be in kind of a bell cow status. I like the over on his 68.5 rush yards. We played that earlier this morning over at Fantasy Guru, but again, the reasoning's kind of already been described. It's a run funnel defense here. The Seahawks are big favorites. The Bears are 24th in EPA per rush, 30th in rush DVOA. They're giving up 4.8 yards per carry to opposing backs. They're 29th in explosive run rate, 31st in adjusted line yards allowed. Bunch of stats right there. When we look at the defense in terms of what the Chicago Bears have allowed, dating back to their Week 7 bye, they've given up 109 to Jahmyr Gibbs, 86 to Aaron Jones, 103 to Guerendo and Patrick Taylor, 175 to Gibbs and Montgomery, 106 to Aaron Jones, 76 to Josh Jacobs, 74 to Ramondre, 107 to James Conner, 117. You guys get the point. They've allowed this an opposing back or the lead backs to clear this prop every single week since their Week 7 bye. I don't envision McIntosh getting a lot of work here. This is really going to be the Charbonnet show. So I expect him to get a lot of work. He is very good as well as capitalizing on explosive gains that they are permitting themselves. I think they're going to get at least one or two here for Charbonnet. Like this prop here at 68. Excuse me. I think you can play some alts as well if you want to. I'm not going to go that route, but I do think that either an alt in terms of, let's say, 80 plus rushing yards and or taking the alt taking the longest rush prop as well for Charbonnet makes sense to me in this matchup. So give me Charbonnet. I think he has a big outing here on Thursday Night Football.
We still have Charbonnet and a couple teams that are still playing. So yes, let's go Charbonnet.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, Tyler Beaker, fantasyguru.com. Let's a couple questions before we shut things down here today. We'll be back tomorrow, 12 o'clock Eastern time. Russell Clay will join me. We'll continue to look at Week 17, talk some long-term stuff too with him. Henry says, needs two of these wide receivers in a PPR setup. DJ Moore, we just talked about. Drake London, who's got a hamstring injury. It sounds like he's going to play through that, but it's there. Juwan Jennings of the Niners, and then Adam Thielen. So we need two of these four guys. At least it's not 3 of 4. It's 2 of 4, which I think at this point is the London hamstring injury enough at this point of the week to say we got to start DJ Moore and then figure out the other guy, or how do you see it?
Yeah, I would play DJ Moore. I really like him in this matchup here. DJ Moore and Juwan Jennings would be my answers. Thielen to me is more of a floor option. I like the spots for Moore and Jennings. Jennings, great spot against a man-heavy Lions squad who's down Carlton Davis, their top cornerback. So now their corners are like Terrion Arnold, who leads the league in penalties. He's just not a great corner as a rookie. He'll get there, but at this time for a defense that wants to play a lot of man coverage, give me Jennings, who I think can get going after he's kind of had a few bumps in the road, but there's definitely ceiling potential there, and I like him in this matchup. So I'm going to go Jennings and DJ Moore.
Justin K's got a question. He grabbed Charbonnet, who someone rage dropped. Yeah. Be careful you don't rage drop. I mean, because I get it. Last week he's terrible. I get it. People make mistakes. So he's got Charbonnet. We're going to start him over Swift. Yes, we broke this down earlier. Justin asked this question long before you came on. But his question was about DK Metcalf. And you said, look, there's I think, some potential big play outlook for DK Metcalf this week. We consider sitting him if the other options are Shakir, Ridley, and Deebo Samuel. So 4 guys, let's kind of, I guess, go top 3 because it sounds like that's what we need to do here. Ridley, Shakir with, we think, a healthy Josh Allen. And Deebo Samuel, who looked great last week after not looking good for 3 months. DK, Deebo, Shakir, Ridley. Would we sit DK here?
I'm looking at sitting Shakir here. Again, we're talking about championships. And in my eyes, I want the ability to have a week-winning performance by any of my wideouts. I haven't really seen it from Shakir this year. He's been a very high floor option, which is great. He helps check the box. But my decision here comes down to Shakir versus Ridley. I just want to double-check who the Titans play. I think it's the Jaguars. It is. So, right. They're very man-heavy, the Jacksonville defense. Good spot for Ridley. I think I would be sitting Shakir here.
Rico T says, hi, Ray. This is before you joined us, so I'm sure he would have said hi to you too, Tyler. In the championship, don't know who to start. Need 2 for the flex. Thielen, Keenan Allen, Garrett Wilson, Khalil Shakir. So you just talked about Shakir. You talked earlier about Keenan Allen. We haven't really talked about Wilson or Thielen, but we need 2 of these 4 guys, Thielen, Allen, Wilson, and Shakir. And I think it's fair to say they're all ranked fairly close this week.
Yeah, I'm sticking with Keenan Allen and Garrett Wilson. Those are the 2 that I would prioritize here. KA, just for the target volume. Like I said, back-to-back 13 target outings. That's incredible volume. This is a team that's going to have to throw quite a bit in this matchup, and everything's pointing toward Keenan Allen having a plus matchup here in this game here, Thursday Night Football. Garrett Wilson's the other guy I want to target. Maybe we get the squeaky wheel narrative. I don't know. Jets are just... it's the Aaron Rodgers saga. We'll see what happens on a week-to-week basis with that, but they are eliminated from the playoffs. They can play Ruiner, though. They play... drawing a blank right now. They play the Bills, pardon me. So they can disrupt the Bills from getting that number 2 seed, which they are currently favored to do. But, I mean, it's Aaron Rodgers. He's got nothing to do except for play for his name right now. Like, there's a chance he's playing for the final 2 games of his career. There's a chance he's playing for his next contract. Yep. He's going to go down swinging. He had 42 attempts last week in a matchup where the Rams just tried to sit on the ball and run as heavily as they could to keep it away from him. They were playing keep away, and he still dropped back and threw it 42 times. I think Garrett Wilson would be the high ceiling play again. I want ceilings in this matchup. If you guys keep asking me these low bar Shakir Thielen guys, I'm not going to go that direction.
Sean H has a question. A ceiling guy who's been more of a guy the last couple of weeks, Nico Collins, and he asked, with teams obviously looking at the text, and we talked about this earlier on the show. If anyone missed it, you can look at my commentary. Texans offense sucks, and they're not doing anything. And when you're losing, Dell and you're losing Diggs, I get it, right? But what do we do with Nico Collins in Week 18 and into the playoffs? Like, he's been half the guy since he's returned that he was before the injury, and there's a lot of things going on here. But those 18 points a week we were banking on for him, we're hoping to get 12 at this point.
Yeah, I think he had 5 for 69 yesterday, something like that. Yeah, I mean, he's going to draw the attention. He has merited it. In my eyes, he's contending for, when we fast forward the clock, let's say 7 months from now, he's going to be in the round 1 top 12 discussion in fantasy squads entering 2025. I think he has done well enough this season where if we look at his potential moving forward, I think that the ceiling is sky high for him. I do not care about this that much. I'm just going to say that. Maybe that's a little callous. I think Nico is still a stud, and I think he's still going to merit target volume. The Texans defense has clearly shown some signs where they have been taking some steps backward. They have a great pass rush, but the secondary still needs some work in my eyes, and losing Petre, not helpful there in terms of IR. They lost him. They lost Jimmy Ward. There's been a lot of injuries that have piled up. So in that sense, I think Collins will still need to be leaned on as they need to pass to stay in the games. But Bobby Slowick needs to get his head out of his butt. My God, I'm sick of this play caller. But yeah, keep going with Collins. I mean, 1 and done in the playoffs. Here's my issue. Do the Texans draw the Steelers in 1 and done? Because both these teams could be a 1 and done squad in my eyes, depending who they match up against. But if they match up against each other, then we could get 2 weeks of Collins. And I would still think he's worth playing in that regard. We'll have to see how that plays out, but that's something to think about as we enter week. I mean, we still have 2 more weeks.
Yeah, so we got plenty of time. Final question for you. Craig Jordan says the following. It's a Superflex League. Played Murray yesterday. 320-3, yes. It's got Kyler Murray. I didn't ask you about Kyler Murray earlier, but, your thoughts on Kyler Murray here, because it sounds on the surface like, do I play him or do I sit him when he's got these 3 running backs? Achane has to play. I think Charbonnet has to play. Bucky Irving, it's like he's kind of has to play too, right? But do we bench Kyler Murray and play all 3 running backs, or do we play one of the running backs in the flex and still play Murray? What do we do?
I will always side with a quarterback here, which I hate to say because Kyler's entering this matchup with nothing to play for. They've been eliminated. He's down both of his starting offensive tackles against the Rams, who are fighting for a playoff spot. They have something to fight for here. I could see the Cardinals really just kind of giving up. They're beat up at RB. They're beat up on the offensive line. Marvin Harrison Jr., we never know what he's going to do. He exploded against the squad earlier in the season, like week 2, but good amount of that production came against Trey White, who's no longer with the squad. This is a tough question, Craig.
Yeah.
Because I think the actual answer is probably to play the running backs, but I think conventional wisdom says play the QB because it's just a higher floor. Do you have a strong take on this one? Because I
think and your point is, I think, the right point. It's why everyone says, well, if you have a super flex league, you always start 2 quarterbacks. Kyler Murray plays bad, he gets 12 points, right? Like, for him to have a single-digit effort, you almost have to think he gets hurt. Like, it's almost impossible, really, for that to happen for a quarterback, right? And the running back, like Bucky Irving, could run for 117 yards, not catch a pass, not get in the end zone. Is not 12 points, right? And it's like that's a really good game. So I agree. I think it's really tough to bench a quarterback, especially one like Murray, who, even when he's a so-so performer, still gives you the 18 points, right? He's still running for 42 yards and somehow gets 2 touchdowns every game and that kind of a thing. I think that you did a good job. Craig did a good job with depth here at the running back spot. But I think you got to go Kyler Murray as much as, and everyone knows this that watches the show. I've never been a Kyler Murray guy since the day he was drafted. I've never been a Kyler Murray. I think he's terrible. I think his attitude's terrible. He's constantly sulking. I've never seen Kyler Murray smile, ever. Have you ever seen him smile? Never seen him smile. Every time he goes to the bench, you can see the top of his head because no one's talking to him. He sits by himself. Like, I don't think he's a team guy. I don't think he's a leader. But he gives you 258 yards of offense and 2 touchdowns every week. So I really struggle to bench him, Tyler. That's kind of my thoughts.
Yeah, I think I'm sticking with a QB too. I think you said it well in terms of if he doesn't reach the paint in terms of one of these running backs, then you're probably left with the quarterback being the better play. And that's a gamble, especially with the Bucs playing RB roulette. You never know.
Right. He's Tyler Beaker. I'm Ray Flowers. I'll be back with you tomorrow at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We're joined by Russell Clay of FantasyGuru.com. He'll join us about a half an hour into the show. He's with us every Friday. Tyler joins us a half hour into the show every Thursday. Talks Thursday Night Football, answers some of your questions, all that kind of stuff as he did today. So he'll be back in 7 days. We'll do this all again for him next week in Week 18. Tyler, thanks for your time today. Good luck with all the articles and the Discord discussions and the wagering and the live stream for DFS tomorrow night. I know it's a really busy next 3 days or 4 days, as it always is for you, the second half of the week. So I appreciate you taking some time today, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and good luck, everybody. Happy holidays again, and thanks for checking out the show.
He's Tyler Beaker. I'm Ray Flowers. FantasyGuru.com. Click the subscribe tab. Get the gift cards as well. Remember, we're giving free dollars away, so that'll help you. We'll give you a little bit of an extra bonus if you sign up for that gift card. And you don't have to give it to somebody else. You can give it to yourself. What the hell? Have fun this holiday season. For Tyler, I'm Ray. We'll see you at 12 o'clock tomorrow on Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com.